Good evening. Let me call this meeting to order. The Stillwater Planning Commission meeting of March 3rd, 2020 is called to order. Let me briefly go over the process. I'll call the items for the agenda. The commission will hear from the staff's report first. Then from the applicant itself, then open the public hearing and hear for those in favor or in opposition or neutral to the request. When you come to the podium, please clearly state your name and address for the record. After all interested parties have spoken, the public hearing will be closed. We will hear closing remarks and alternatives from the staff. Public hearings, item 2A, short-term rental, review of application from Daniel Purdy for a short-term rental property at 903 East Brook Avenue in the residential single-family small lot district.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. The first item is a short-term rental issue. As you may remember from the previous ones, for those that were on the commission at the time last year, the short-term rental ordinance that the city has allows for an application and then a 30-day window where objections can be made. If there is an objection, the matter comes to you for a hearing similar to an SUP. So it's handled as similar to the SUP process. So the applicant has had an application submitted to the city and there's been an objection raised, hence the public hearing requirement through the SUP process. So at this time, the area map here has a property with a hatch pattern. This is the subject location. At this point, staff is going to step aside and let the applicant and others speak through the public hearing process.
Does the applicant want to come forward and speak? State your name and address for the record. I appreciate that.
My name is Dan Purdy, 9100 South Lost Creek in Perkins. Yeah, this is my house on 903 East Brook Avenue. It was my parents' house. They lived in it for about 14 years. They had to move out of it for health concerns, and I acquired the property. It's the only other property that I own besides the house we live in. I thought, well, maybe we could use it for an investment property. Now, my parents lived there. I got to know some of the neighbors. I'm good friends with some of the neighbors. The next door neighbors are Cody and April Condit, and they shared some concerns when I bought it because I was talking about renting it, a long-term rental. And I assured them that I would do my best to vet my tenants and hope for the best. Well, unfortunately, I've had 2 tenants in there, both long-term, and subsequently I spent $17,000 so far in trying to get the house back into appropriate condition. So it was frustrating, to say the least. I had to apologize to the Condits because they had to put up with some renters that were undesirable. So I'm at a crossroads. How do I? Because I like the neighborhood. It's a good neighborhood. Our long-term goal for the property is maybe one of our kids either rent it from us or take it over, purchase it from us and buy it. So how do I get from here to there? Well, we talked about it and said, well, let's try a short-term rental because I can vet them a lot better than I can a long-term rental. And a long-term rental obviously fooled me, and I got some renters that were not, they didn't care for the property or the neighborhood. So we did this whole process for the short-term application, the thing I find appealing about it is you're only going to have people in that house 6 or 7 nights a month, statistically in this market, which is fine with me. I need to get some revenue out of the house. By far, I won't make the revenue I would with a long-term renter, but I will have control of the house. If God forbid that we do get a bad renter, it's for a night or 2 nights, not the next year. Now that neighborhood, there's at least 4 rental houses that I know of that are 3 are directly across the street, and 1 is 2 doors down, and they're terrible to look at. And I understand why the green shields show concern, because I show the same concern over the degrading of that neighborhood. my goal is to be a positive part of that neighborhood. We've already replaced all the fence around the back. We plan on doing more fence across the front. We're going to paint the house. I mean, people aren't going to go to an Airbnb or short-term rental in a house that looks terrible. I mean, I personally use Airbnbs, and I prefer them over hotels. I know there's other people who do. I mean, if I get a person who's interested in staying there as an Airbnb, I can vet them a little bit. I can look at, see how many times they've stayed at an Airbnb. I can see what their rating is. If they don't have a 5-star rating, I might ask some questions. I might say, why are you coming to Stillwater? You know, what event are you coming here for? So I echo many of the concerns that the Green Shields expressed with this complaint. And I don't want to see the neighborhood go downhill either. I plan on having family living there again in this house. So are there any questions for me?
Any questions? See no questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll officially open the public hearing. Is there anybody else to speak in favor of this particular item? See no one, is there anyone here to speak in opposition or neutral on this particular item? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this particular item? See no one, I'll officially close the public hearing. Staff, do you have alternatives or?
The way the process works with this, as you may remember, you essentially are empowered under the ordinance to review the matter, and if you see no objections and feel that it's appropriate in terms of location, you can vote to approve. If you feel it's not, you can vote to deny. If you feel there's other pieces of information that's necessary, you can table if necessary to a date certain with specific information in mind that you could be requesting. To give you an idea of the process of how it worked from last year when we had cases like this, you made a decision, the applicant or the people filing the protest had the option to make an appeal of that decision. The appeal process, if it goes forward, goes to City Council. If there's no appeal of your decision, then it stands. And I'll defer to legal in case there's something I'm missing in the process, but that's typically the Reader's Digest version of the way this works.
Let's open up discussion. Any discussion? Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the short-term rental application from Daniel Purdy.
I second.
Motion passes 5-0. Item 2B, HI Development Preliminary Plat, requesting review and approval to create a new residential single-family subdivision of 329 residential lots and 7 outlots on 79.55 acres to be named Park Value Addition, located in property currently addressed is 1823 West 6th Avenue and zoned as residential single-family lot. 1823 West 26th. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Ryan Harkins, Community Development. So this is a proposed preliminary plat. It is at the intersection of 26th and Western. You can see the subject property in the hatched pattern here. It is on the, like we said, the intersection. It is immediately north of an area that you reviewed recently that was proposed for a subdivision as well, Fry Farms. This is adjacent to that, to the immediate north, and then Teal Ridge is across the street to the north of 26th. The subject property is within the yellow area on the aerial that you see. The zoning is RSS for the majority of the property. There's a small strip of ag zoning right through here in this corner. That is proposed as primarily as an outlot for drainage purposes. This gives you a street view. This is looking southwest from 26th and Western. So you can see the edge of the proposed development here, you can see the property across the street. And then looking to the east on the street view, you can see the topography changes as well as the northern edge of the property. This is the proposed plat that the applicant has submitted. There's an access to 26th and then an access to Western. There's also a connection into the Fry Farms addition that you've recently given conditional approval for. The outlots, as we mentioned, are primarily through here for drainage. This area stays open and undeveloped. There's also a detention pond through here. The lots vary in size from the minimum 5,000 square feet per the RSS zoning to slightly larger in the 6,200 to 7,000 square foot range. It does comply with, in terms of density, with those requirements of the RSS and the bulk standards in that district. It also complies because it has a minimum 2 points of access. Having said that, I will tell you during the staff review, we have walked through a number of issues to have resolved, primarily with regard to infrastructure, especially water and sewer capacity and access. With that in mind, the applicant, after our last meeting with them last week, asked for through an email that the Planning Commission defer the item until their next meeting so that they have some time to work through some of those issues particularly with water utilities, as well as internally amongst their own design team. Any questions staff can answer at this time?
So the applicant wants to defer it to the March 24th meeting?
They have made that request. Primarily, again, to work through the water and sewer issues. In the discussion in this internal staff review, we noted in our review to them that there isn't sufficient sewer capacity and there are some issues with water pressure that potentially can be worked through. One of the issues primarily is the sewer capacity and trying to make sure that lines are the right size to make the proper connections. But those are the reasons why they've asked for that deferral.
So I think it was our last meeting or the meeting before, when we discussed the development to the south of it, it meant we approved that preliminary plat, but a lot of it was sort of implicit to this stuff to the north and that. So
Yes.
What happens if you all can't come up with a solution in that regard? What does that do for our previously approved preliminary plat?
If they have to make changes, they would either resubmit a preliminary plat, or they would indicate changes on the final plat as they brought it forward. You made a conditional approval based on issues in the staff report being resolved, so they have to come back to you one way or another and indicate how those issues have been resolved.
Okay, thank you.
So what I'm going to do is officially open the public hearing to see if anybody here is tonight that wants to speak on this particular item.
I'm sure there probably are.
Yes. So I'll officially open the public hearing. If somebody wants to speak, please come forward. I see your hand. You're welcome to come up. Give your name and address and
I'm not a public speaker, but my name is Pamela Oakes and my husband Dave, and we live on 26th Street, and we like having the privacy, the country feel. You were talking about the water issue. We also worry about the drainage. And right now, the city doesn't seem like they can fix, and I think they're starting to do it, even our bridge down there. We have tons and tons of people that travel in front of our house and circle our driveway. So that's an issue.
can you give me your address?
2120 West 26th,
Thank you very much.
on the third house on the north side, east of 26th and Western. Tonight, I was coming back from a ball game, and how Western is just packed, because of the bridge. I don't know whether y'all are going to change the road. When I moved over there, I did come up here with a neighbor to try to get you to pave it. And you're there all the time fixing potholes, but I don't know whether y'all will be increasing the road any or not, or whether you're going to be taking out any of our yard. So there's just a lot of different issues. We're not for it, but, we're nice people. But just want to throw that at you.
I don't have any answers to your questions yet, so.
So we just have concerns, the traffic and the everything. Okay, I just wanted to state that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else want to speak on this particular item? Yes, sir.
I'm Jeff Huffman. I'm at 2102 West 26th, right next door to the Oaks, right across the street from this proposed development. And I share a lot of the same sentiments that Pam shared. The infrastructure, the street-wise, the way it's situated right now, just barely carries what we currently have. And that's not counting the addition that you've approved on the north side of 26th, there next to Teal Court. When we added that addition into there, those homes aren't built yet, so that impact hasn't completely shown itself yet. So I would imagine that is probably something he's talking about that could impact the sewer system and the water system and the electrical and everything else and along behind all of that. The street is narrow, and it is not curb and gutter. It is a ditch situation, and so it creates a lot of water drainage, that because of the topographical differences between the south side of the street and the north side of the street, the south being much higher, that'll have to be cut way back in order to keep the water from transitioning out in and across the street to the north into our yards or into our property, you might say. And then back over towards 26th, where you talked about a small retention pond being down low, there's a huge climb, you might say, as you ramp from 26th Street up to Western. Regardless of whether you're turning south or turning north at that intersection, it is extremely dangerous. And from about 7 o'clock until about 8:15 in the morning, that street backs way up. And then in the evening at 5:30, there'll be people waiting to turn left and turn down 26th Avenue, and that backs up, then back the other way, backs up to the north, past the initial driveway into the first church there off of 26th and Western. So the entry and exit points are going to be extremely critical in this. I don't have any hope of standing up here and being in opposition and stopping this project in any manner. But the density of that, I mean, come on. There's not density like that anywhere over in that part. I mean, residential 3, whatever. But I mean, that's pretty dense. I mean, you figure up 79 acres at 329 houses. That's an average of 1/4 of an acre. Might meet the quota. But that's 2 cars per 329, 660 cars added to what you got going on already. That's a pretty big load to take into account. And I realize that it's going to be on the table and you're going to figure out the sewer situation and stuff like that, but it's running at capacity today. And I know that the infrastructure development and everything has been way behind all over. But, we're waiting almost a year for a bridge. And you're going to throw this at us with another, 30, 40 houses over on the north side of 26, there next to Teal Court. That's a pretty big load over there for us. So I encourage anybody who wants to drive over there, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning and see what that's like. So appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for your comment. Anybody else would like to speak on this particular item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. There's requests from the applicant to table this to March 24th, 2020. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to defer to March 24th, 2020.
Second.
Let's vote. The motion passes 5-0. Next planning commission meeting is March 24th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.